I think she'd rather have a youth center than a bar.
Excuse me.
Did you see the DoubleTree, the bar in there?
Yeah.
It looks nice, doesn't it?
It looks
Mike?
cool.
That's what a lot of people have said.
Uninvited.
Yeah, that's
Pretty
what,
good.
Alex Eckhart, you know, or is Alex is the older one? That's what he said. We were in there, because I'm working a couple days a week there, and for the grand opening, you know, a lot of people came out, and that's what he said. I don't like it. There's no booths. We need booths. He said it's just, that's what he said. He goes, it's not my style. That's exactly what he said. It looks cool.
Good looking.
Inviting. I think if they would have put booths in with all of that, then it would have been a
I
good
think it's a
idea.
whole lot easier to clean, probably.
Yes, yes,
I can attest to that.
yes.
Anyway.
Don't you think I used them?
So this whole thing turned my
Have
phone
you
off,
ever-
so it was rain.
When we went back to national bowling in Kansas last summer, they had it was,
Special Olympics?
no, it was, they had almost a whole block of pickleball.
Oh, we're playing pickleball right now.
Pickleball courts, they had a big indoor pickleball court, and then they had outdoor pickleball courts. They had places, was on one section, big outside, and then the outdoor pickleballs, and then they had some shuffleboard courts. And then over here was, they had kind of like a sports bar and a restaurant. And then over this area,
nice.
it was a big wide outside, where they had fire pits,
Oh, nice.
chairs and tables,
Yeah.
family, and then they had the kitchen board.
Oh, what do you call that? With the bean bags, cornhole,
Yeah,
cornhole.
And then they had the other one with the square triangles, all kinds of games,
Yeah,
the family could
right.
go.
Staying busy.
You went in there, there was no charge to go in.
Sprinkler system over here.
And then there was this artificial grass out there where all that stuff was placed
Yeah.
up, and then they had a outdoor stage where
Except for
you
the
could do
Right,
Oh,
entertainment
nice.
and
they
stuff.
changed it around.
Oh, okay.
And stuff.
They got the two throw about, but it worked.
And that you could,
Oh, man, we did.
I noticed Ben didn't remember what kind of church down out
We did a
there.
lot of things. He's thinking of
yeah.
changing the vault, give us options.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that would be going on.
We've got all these
Ideas for anything that is family friendly is wonderful.
But that pickleball court was, I was just amazed the whole time.
Have you played pickleball before?
There's
No, but.
Gordon and I just started playing in Greeley.
I know it's falls down version tennis.
Pretty much, yeah.
And
And
a
you use,
bigger than ping pong.
yeah, that's what it reminds me of, ping pong and tennis matches each other.
Half as much.
Right.
In between.
Right. But I think we played for 3 hours, so I probably played like 10
There
to
you
12
go, the
games.
table tonight,
And I
for
was
extra room.
sweating pretty bad.
It'll make this
But
feel better.
there's some better players, but we're still kind of learning. But
We need to get close to the little
recording thing.
Food looks great, Mary, thank you.
I couldn't find
Our Wi-Fi is up in Wyoming, and he went to
Less
some
than optimum.
tournament
I don't
in
feel it.
Casper, Wyoming.
Yeah.
He came down, he lives
I
up
saw in the
on
county,
the side
was
there,
3,000
and he came down
for
to
the house, 3,000 for the house.
Casper for this tournament, and he said, "Boy, you got cream." I thought I could play pickleball pretty good, but no, it didn't turn out that way at all, so, anyway.
Gordon went Wednesday and he was watching this Tom walk under the court, and I mean, he had braces on his knees, he could hardly walk. He got a big kick from Gordon's butt. You know, you don't have to move that much, you know, but if you have the technique down and your fundamentals down, because the whole idea is to get up and do that.
Yeah, people are going back out.
Save a little bit.
Yeah, it's, but I,
There were a lot of people out there.
Alright, what do you guys think? Should we get in and get you back out on the road?
Sure, our big
That's all we
group
get
here.
today?
I know, this
Hey,
is-
you know what's kind of fun about this though is that I had several people email me back with comments and feedback.
Oh, good.
So I have some to share with
Oh,
you
good.
tonight too. And that's in large part, I think, why some people either couldn't make it, there were some conflicts, of course, but also because they already gave me some detailed feedback. So, yeah, that's the whole point. There are really only 3 things we're gonna do tonight. I'm gonna ask you for any changes that you wanna make in document number 1, ask you for any changes you wanna make in document number 2, and then ask you about forming an ongoing committee. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I wanna know kind of what maybe we should call it, just generally speaking at first. And then I wanna know if anybody here personally wants to volunteer for it, and or if you're willing to ask someone else to be on that committee. And we'll deal with that sheet last, it's gonna be over up on the wall. But, yeah, this could be nice and quick with a smaller group, right? So we'll see how it goes. We have one more community meeting, that's on February 1st. I would encourage you definitely to invite as many people as you can. That'll be a chance to see, oh, you printed some out. I was just gonna make them do it online. You were so kind.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
you-
they go
you
together
take
too, yeah.
Mary's always on top of everything.
She is. She takes good care of everybody.
Thank you.
So that'll be perfect, thank you.
How do we get the community here?
Well, I think, if you
Mary has
post,
to make food.
yeah, food. Well, if you post it all on like next door, or if you're at church in the next week or 2 to invite people. I know a lot of people will say something on Facebook about it, so whatever and however you think would be the best way to get that information out there. I know the fire department was really involved in this process for several of our meetings and they gave us feedback, so I'd love to have them there. So anybody you can think of like that would be good. I also think that, we'll put out the final document, and the reason I'm using final is because I never look at these as final. I always look at them as a work in progress. We can always do something to improve it, and you probably should update it at a minimum of once a year. But, that's why I never look at them as final. But the final document's gonna go to the board, probably on the 18th, I think is what we're aiming for, in a work session, so that the board can have a conversation about it. And I would encourage you guys to be there as well, if you would like to let them know what you think about it. Other than that, I'll make it up and say, well, you thought it was the best plan you'd ever seen, you couldn't imagine a better plan, it's perfect in every way. Those are the sorts of things they will make up if you're not there to defend yourself. So, just gonna warn you.
Sheriff, real quick on the 18th,
Please, on the 18th of February.
is that, you mentioned the work session will be, it's a regular board meeting night, would you prefer having a 6 p.m. work session for an hour before the meeting?
I was thinking your board would want to have that kind of give and take discussion, but if it's better at your 7 p.m. regular board meeting, that's fine too.
Okay, I'll talk to Adrian, I'll let you know.
Because the other thing we could do is a work session on the 18th and then come back on the, whatever date that would be, and have a formal adoption too.
On the first of meeting March.
That would be a problem, if they would rather stagger it a little bit like that.
Okay. All right.
Most of the board has been at the meetings involved in this plan, so they might not have a lot of discussion, but I know some of the board haven't been able to make the meetings too, so they might wanna be more involved. Alright, so I am going to put you guys to sleep by turning the lights off and showing a movie.
Boy, got popcorn?
I wish. We do. There we go.
Popcorn.
So, this, actually, I'm gonna turn the light back on. I changed my mind entirely. I'm allowed to do that, because you have written documents in front of you, and I think most people prefer to look at the written document. If you're that kind of person, you're in luck. If you would rather look at the screen, it's gonna be a little bit light, but we're gonna go through it. So the first document that I wanna talk to you about is what we're calling the marketing brochure. It's shorter. It's about 4 pages, 8 pages long. And so it's designed to be a document that's printed on regular 8.5 by 11 paper and folded in the middle, but it's also designed to be posted on the website. So that's where most people look these days, by the way, when they're doing research. They will go right to the website and they'll look for something like this. And when I say a marketing document, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to talk about the great things that are in Platteville, why you might wanna live here, why you might wanna move here, why you might wanna do business here, why you might just wanna stop by and see us. It's also designed to have inserts that you can put into it easily. So for example, if you're highlighting a specific business, you could print an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and just slide it right on in here and send it out. Or if there's a specific piece of property that comes up for sale that you really want to highlight, you want to mail something out to a bunch of people, you could print this document, insert that piece of property map with all the details from the realtor, and send it out. You see that realtors do that quite a bit with properties. They'll do just an 8.5 by 11 two-sided sheet of paper that's got all the details, pretty pictures. That's exactly what you could insert into here. So first of all, I should point out that I am not a marketing expert. So I told Troy that I had sort of come up with this tagline, but you can blame the tagline on me if you don't like it. If you love it, give me all the credit.
I love it, I like it.
I've had a lot of comments that people like your Platteville, people, places, and possibilities.
Well, it really, I'm being rather facetious, because you guys came up with it. I asked you what was the best thing about Platteville. I heard time and time again it was the people. So I'm like, okay, this is great. And then I heard time and time again it was the location. So the place itself, right? So I'm like, okay, there's another P. Now I'm going all alliterative on people and thinking all these P words because I got Platteville already. So that's where the pure Platteville came from. And so that's the tagline we've been using. And if it works, I say go with it, because usually you try to create a tagline that you can build on. So for example, if you're going to use pure Platteville and you wanted to highlight the people, you could actually do like a whole series on the people of Platteville, the history of the people, as well as the current people that are living here. You can highlight the businesses as part of that. If you're talking about, you know, the place part of it, you could talk about all sorts of things around Platteville and just highlight that. So not only is it compact as a tagline, but you could also break it out. So one of the things that I want you to think of as we go through this document is the photos. Because I believe I've mentioned, I think photos tell a story as well. There aren't a lot of photos of Platteville. So we're in the process of talking to several professional photographers who have done some work, but the work that they've done is really around the railroad and around buildings like this. We don't have a lot of photos of, say, your event in Platteville. We don't have a lot of really good photos. We have some great ones of Town Hall, by the way, but we don't have a really good one of some of your parks or a really good one of some of the museums. So I can see that coming out of here is, it's relatively inexpensive to hire a photographer, and we might be able to do that with some of the monies left in the grant as well to finish this out, because it's directly related to that. Now is not the best time of the year to be taking photos. So, what we probably want to do, because DOLA is very finicky about their grant money, is go ahead and contract with a photographer and then select a date where they would come out and take photos. Probably, you know how it goes around here, March maybe, if there's a good week where you get some really good.
You gotta get
May. You're right.
When the daffodils are around.
Early June.
June is good.
Well, I was talking to the mayor about just the photo aspect of it. We may have to finalize this initial plan with what we have, and then I told her that even the town would pick up somebody to take pictures throughout the course of the summer, because the Veterans Memorial, the cemetery, is plush and green. You know, the park when it's done. I mean, just
The schools themselves, with kids in the schools, you
having
know.
a page on public facilities, for
But you can get a
example.
picture of the schools for kids now.
Yeah, you know, the school itself may have some photos, but
It wouldn't have
when I
any
reached
greenery
out,
anyway.
yeah.
AstroTurf is good.
Well, there you go.
Well, you know, kids playing ball in the park, kids playing on your sports field, that kind of thing is really, it tells that story, especially when you're talking about, you know, the tagline and how we're trying to convey this. This is actually a really great photo, but it does say something specific. It talks about industry, and in specific, it looks, even if you didn't know, it looks agriculture based or light industrial based, something along that line. And that's not all you are, so. So having said that, and this is of course the front page of the marketing brochure, and then the inside page, it's been suggested to us that that picture, which is in Platteville, would be, more suited potentially to a historic page. So you'll see this come back up again in the big plan. We're probably gonna move this to a history section on the big plan. But what that means is you have the opportunity possibly for two photos here. There's the blank spot up top, and then there's the spot on the bottom where you could do things like highlight some parks or the schools or other things in Platteville that you'd want to highlight. So as I go through these particular pages, this is where you just shout out any suggestions you might have. The Platte River's fertile valley, I pulled this off of various websites, by the way. There's a Discover Well website that has a lot of history pages and a lot of information. There's upstate Colorado. I don't trust Wikipedia, but what I did trust, I pulled across and created this. So this is a sort of a mock-up of various pieces of information that are out there about Platteville. Has long been known for its livestock and poultry, with over 200 farms now located in the surrounding area. And then we do want to talk about some of the things Weld County brings to the table, because I think it's important for people to know that Weld County is ranked 8th in the nation for agricultural counties, and Platteville is proud of that heritage. With the Union Pacific Railroad, Highway 85, and Highway 66 on the edges of town, Platteville is uniquely situated for agricultural, commercial, and light industrial business. With abundant open space, family parks, great schools, a wonderful museum, and a local library, Platteville is well known for small town living, where neighbors know neighbors and people are the foundation of the lifestyle. The population is anticipated to grow exponentially, and what we do need to do here is we need to quote and cite that statistic, because Troy asked me about it, and I've got it. I was just waiting to update everything all at once. 22% over the next 5 years, bringing in more opportunities and possibilities. Now that 22% is the Weld County area. It's not just Platteville, which is why I need to cite the statistic, because I don't want anybody panicking on me thinking that you guys are going to increase your population by 500 people in the next couple of years. There's the within 40 minutes of Denver International Airport, less than an hour from downtown Denver, and the heart of the Rocky Mountains in Estes Park. Platteville is centrally located for shipping, shopping, and skiing. There's my layer streak again. Today, Platteville is an important location for natural resource development, and sits at the intersection of two major connecting highways in Colorado. With a population of over 3,000 and growing, the town is platted and zoned land ready for residential, commercial, and industrial development. With rail access, highway access, and river access, Platteville is full of possibilities. Please let us know how we can help you locate your business here in town.
So with regards to the phrase population anticipated to grow exponentially, exponential growth is a tremendous amount of growth.
Different word is what I hear you saying.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when you say it's gonna grow exponentially 22%, then it's kinda like saying, that's not exponential. Exponential is 100%.
Doubling.
Doubling,
Double,
you know.
So we can
Not
say
that
steadily.
I have a major problem with the idea, but when you put
Yeah.
those two together, it makes us look like we're
Drop
Boom
that
it,
word.
yeah.
like we're booming, or we don't know what exponential means.
And it's for Weld County, not just Platteville too, so.
Yeah, maybe just state the percentages you come up with by,
Take the exponential.
expected to grow by 25% over the next, or 20.
Yeah, just leave out.
Yeah,
Exponential.
Perfect. Because if we do decide to, put something back in, that's the great thing about this document. You might sit with it for 3 months or so, which I would recommend before you do any changes, and then say, aha, now we'd like to make another
well, I
change.
mean, you could put in, as opposed to exponential, tremendous growth, because 22% growth is a strong growth, but it's.
Do you have any idea what that percentage is? The real percentage that we were being expected to grow by?
From Platteville, I have to pull the US Census data for,
The,
upstate Colorado may have some.
Yeah, they can't narrow it down specifically to just Platteville. It's more of an area because of the way the census data is broken out. But yeah, we can get pretty close, and I can give that to you. So would you prefer it be
Just curious.
specific?
No,
Okay,
I
just
don't
curious.
know, I
Okay.
was just curious.
No, I can give that to you.
don't know that it matters that much.
No, what we try to do in economic development, is we try to, three things. We try to deal with facts and yet use those facts to help us do what we want to do. So by spreading it out a little wider to Weld County where you do have higher growth numbers, that does imply
The
to
track's
people.
different.
Yeah. And that's why it's important to do the citation, so that nobody says, oh, I thought Platteville themselves was. Okay.
Doesn't say anything in about the fort, you know, you ought to have the fort included.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I mean, that's a,
With some pictures of it.
When you look at our history page on upstate Colorado, it starts off with, you know,
where it all
Platteville was a
started.
settlement community back in the day.
And really, the
And
fort,
it ties in with the, you know, the Platte River's Fertile Valley along with the livestock.
you need a definite picture of the fort and the buffalo and all that.
Yeah, just wait for things to turn green.
Yeah, well, okay.
Well, and we might be able to get a good picture for it.
Even that, even without the greenery, I think.
Yeah, for the initial one and then
Okay.
placeholder.
But I really think it needs to be, doesn't mention the
Of course.
fort at all. And I think it's a,
I'm putting, you can see I'm putting these, you probably can't see it exactly, but I'm putting little notes on the document itself, and but I'll also add that here. Fort Vasquez, there's a,
right, because I think it's an attraction to Platteville.
perfect. All right. Page 3. By the way, if you take these documents with you and you come across something else, you can email me, you can show up at the community meeting and offer it as a feedback too. So now's not the only chance you'll get. We created this map to show the location. This is what you call a drive time map, which is typically very important in retail, commercial development, and in this case, of course, we're looking at light industry. So it's less of a retail map, I would suggest, because you're probably never gonna be a retail destination. You'll be more of a, oh, look what a cute little town, let me slide over and see what cute little shops there are, where can I eat at a local restaurant. So what this is trying to show people is what we conveyed on the first page, how close you are to DIA, how close you are to downtown Denver, how close you are to Estes Park, and also show the major freeways and the fact that you're right there in the heart of it. So that's what this map is intended to show. And then this is sort of the snapshot, if you will. The snapshot was taken right off of the Upstate Colorado website, which is your economic development partner in the region. So these are their numbers. We can change these numbers if we need to, as long as we have a citation from where we took them. But in the meantime, this is where we got them right off the
I did look at upstate recently and the numbers tweaked a little bit.
Okay.
They're always updating these numbers.
It
Which,
might help to have your directions on your map as well.
Oh, you want me to put north, south, east, and west?
It
Okay.
wouldn't hurt.
maybe up in the corner or something.
Well, just up in the border, just inside. I know most everybody knows there's directions, but.
Yeah, we'll just stick one of those symbols on there, you know, the little compass symbol.
Yeah,
Most
that'd
people
be
do.
good, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of room on the side there to do that.
What is the star in the logo of that?
Well, that's a great question. The theory is that that is actually literally Platteville, but it's not. My map maker got it wrong. So I was like, just give me the map, we'll fix it. So we have a fixed map, it just hasn't got it in yet.
Where the dot, but.
Yeah, you see that I was trying to get them to do a star. They started with this little red thing, and I was trying to get them to do the star. So I'll make that
Just
now.
move the star to the red thing.
Yes, right.
Make it a red star, so it doesn't.
You want a red star? I can do a red star.
No. That way, this star kind of blend. I really didn't notice that till you brought it up, Jeff.
I just,
Make it red.
I looked this over a couple weeks ago when you sent it out and I didn't even notice it then.
And these are the things that, you know, it's kind of like that book report you did back in high school. You read it, and you think it's great, and then somebody says, well, what? And you're like, I didn't even notice it anymore. I've read it so many times, so. Yeah, we can, and obviously, the document that the town ends up getting will be editable. You might have to have some software to edit it, but it's pretty easy to do. So it's not a problem to edit it.
And what we
Oh.
kind kind of center that circle, you know, on the page, it's kind of offset left, right? You know, it shows brush, because we really do show brush.
On that to be in the center, sure, easy to do.
I'd rather show more of the mountains.
Oh yeah, we can move over and show maybe,
More traction.
yeah. Although some people like the
Sagebrush.
wide open plains leading to
Well.
Kansas.
They can go to Kansas.
You get both here.
Who would go to Kansas?
Hey, now.
Well, when I moved here, I was like, I first moved to Milliken and I was like, why do people tell me this is Colorado, I have no idea why people tell me there are tornadoes here. And I said that to somebody once and they looked at me and they said, Cheryl, what state is right over there? I'm like, oh, Kansas. These next series of graphs were taken right off of the State of Colorado State Demographer's Office. And we retyped them to make them slightly more easy to read, although I will admit they are still small. So I wanted to ask that of you. What we typically try to highlight in economic development is your population forecast. And you can see that this is Weld County. They don't have a specific one to Platteville on the State Demographer's Office. And you can see how it's expected to trend upwards significantly. And also, it's usually important for people to say, well, what occupations are there? And so you can see some of those, which sometimes is surprising to people. And of course, this is a Weld County. Business and financial operations, transportation and material moving, then computer and mathematical, building and grounds, cleaning and maintenance, with all the construction, doesn't surprise you, right? Sales and related, construction and extraction. So that's your natural gas, oil and gas energy. Office and administration support. So it's always kind of interesting to see the biggest drivers. One thing that was interesting to me to see this is that everybody thinks of Weld County and us as oil and energy, and that's all we are. That's all we are. But you take a look at this as a business owner and you're thinking to yourself, there's some opportunity there. And then finally, business characteristics. You can see you are mostly comprised of what we call small businesses, 50 and under. Larger businesses are significantly limited, which makes absolute sense, right? I mean, small community, small business. And then the next page, it's usually important for people to know, where and what they're dealing with when they're saying, okay, so how big is Platteville? What kind of land do they have annexed? Especially if you're thinking about being a commercial or a residential developer. And so this is a map that came out of your comprehensive plan that we've talked about before, and the colors mean something. So for example, right down the middle you see the Platte River. That's one of the reasons I kind of like this map. And you can see that that's sort of an environmental designation for the land that's immediately adjacent to the river. So there's urban, development, urban, some rural protection, and then you can see the most heavily zoned area is right there in the center of town. You can see the railroad running right through there as well.
The dotted line of the actual town limit?
No, that's the issue with
That's
this
growth
map.
area.
Yeah, this is our growth area, so the town limits map, it's a little misleading, so either
Yeah, it is.
change it, you probably need to change the title or change the map.
Because it looks like that's our town limit. Our
So-
town limit, the big little yellow
But
one.
see, then the next map is opportunities, and that's our growth map, so it's still in there. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
Pretty much the same.
But,
or we highlight our current
well,
town
word it
limit.
different thing, so that you
Different
know
and-
exactly what it is.
Well, I think what we should do, here's my suggestion to you about this particular issue, because one of the things that we're trying to design is basically a downtown map. And we want the downtown map to show some of the opportunities as well as the zoning. We'd like it to kind of point out some of the vacant pieces of land or areas that might be ripe for redevelopment. I'd like that map to also show, to be a little bit broader than just downtown. Where's the library? Where's the park in town? So a little bit more of like a location map.
Maybe that kind of map should be first before this one.
I would
I would
suggest we
think so,
remove
too.
one of these and you can come on to the table. Remove one of these and replace it would be my
Well-
suggestion, or we can add it and make, this a longer
It almost looks like the same map to me,
Yeah.
twice.
It is, for all
yeah.
intents and purposes it is, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to have the same map
No,
in the same.
I like the
Blown up big.
So we could do just the town limits and show people, but
Do that and show where these particular.
opportunities. were.
Yeah, and where our good points are sitting in town.
Well, I think the opportunities map, which we call our urban growth boundaries report, so they know, even though they wanna come to Platteville, it's an area where they could annex into Platteville.
Well,
Cause right now, if we have large scale residential, we don't have room in town limits, they'd have to be annexed in. So this would show them those areas where
areas that they.
they're in our plan, so that the board could annex it. So-
Would that be the opportunities map then?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
then
let
a
me,
more specific.
let me show you a map that's in the actual plan here. I'm gonna throw, well, you've got it on your side too. So this is the map on page 9 of the big plan, the longer one in front of you, that we created to try to show some actual opportunities. And it was our intent to take this map and maybe put it in your marketing brochure too. But what you can see here is what we were really trying to highlight was what are some areas of land that are, if you will, available for development. That have, you know, the zoning is on there, that we're kind of ready to go from a building and planning perspective. So the blue, would be industrial rail access. And this does not mean that the people who own this land are even necessarily looking to develop it right now, or want to or don't want to sell it. It's just a map that says, generally speaking, these are the areas that we think as a town that you should be interested in taking a look at if you wanna make an investment. And the yellow is residential. It could be single family, it could be multifamily, it could be large estate residential, but it's all residential. And then the green in particular is commercial that we think might have some redevelopment opportunities. So this is what we called the opportunities map, and it was intended to go over into your marketing plan. And then you'd still have some urban growth area type map, and there's a vacant spot on here for the Main Street map. But this map, the town limits map, really isn't town limits at all. Although some people understand what urban growth boundary means and some people don't, so usually relabel if I can spell my life
Yeah,
better.
sometimes we just tell people it's their growth area, where Platteville wants to grow.
Platteville growth area. So regardless, we'll
more sense.
relabel the map appropriately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you have to look at the legend pretty tight to figure out what you're looking at.
And like for somebody like me that never looks at maps, it
Yeah.
doesn't really make sense to
yeah,
me.
I can absolutely see that.
They need some.
In reality, everything west of the river won't be, the town can't service that, so they're gonna have to stay on septic or well, or tie into central well separately from the town. It's still possible, but the town won't provide those services. It's financially impossible.
Impossible.
It's not possible, I can't see anybody paying much money for an under or over the river.
So definitely deal with the maps.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
if we
what I
put this
hear
out
is-
and call it town limits, the board will have people storming in here from out in the county saying, when did we become home?
When we go over there.
Yeah, Richie Lind will be in there pretty quick.
So we'll call that first one for sure, we'll call it Platteville Growth Area. And the second one that's in the marketing brochure, we're gonna replace it with the opportunities map that's in the big plan. And we may be able to add that Main Street map in here too. I think we'll kind of take a look and see how it turns out, if it'll look good. Then as always, you always wanna have a way for people to research more about your town or get into contact. If you think of anyone else, any other agency that might belong here, town's an important contact, and they're on the back page, but Upstate Colorado, the Economic Development Group locally, regionally here. The state of Colorado, the Office of Economic Development. How do you contact Weld County? Where might you find the Platteville Comprehensive Plan? What about Discover Weld? The Small Business Development Center. And then some of these things that people typically wanna know if they're thinking about business. Who provides energy? Well, it's Excel Energy. Who provides the gas? Who provides the trash? How about telephone? That kind of thing. They're typically wanting to reach out to those agencies and say themselves, how much would it cost? What's the average cost of electricity or gas or so forth, so.
I'd like to add one thing,
Uh-huh.
just because I've heard a lot from business lately about internet. Internet access.
Who does your internet?
And right now, we have CenturyLink and we have Telos, T-E-L-O-S. Telos is more high-speed commercial. CenturyLink is permanent.
That's what I hear about them all.
Well, I have it at my house, and Sunday afternoon, for whatever reason, everybody must be on their phone.
So you haven't started to tell us yet?
Well, I met Tom, well, I know Tom, the owner, and I saw him last week, I just need to email him my address so he can get his service plan started.
See, we can't get CenturyLink at my house.
Oh, you can't?
Really?
No.
You're too far out.
We're too
You're in
You don't
the
have,
country.
you don't have the landline, do you?
Mm.
We don't either. We have it.
Would that be an appropriate slot in here to, you're talking about partners with, the school district
Thank you.
and the fire district?
Fire district.
Yeah, that's fire.
You just shrink the font, Jeff.
Get your magnifying glass out.
No, you know what we'll do? Here's what we'll do. We're gonna make this up top, we're gonna stretch it out and make it
Stretch it
longer.
out.
Yep. Perfect, thank you.
Instead of important contact information, could it be important resource information?
Of course.
I think resource is more of an accurate word for what this page is about. Just the contact.
And is there anything else that if I was thinking about actually moving here, this is not what this document is designed specifically to do, but if I was thinking about moving here, is there anything else that you think I should put on here?
Not like having schools and parks.
Because we can always add too, so if you think
I
of
mean,
something.
should the town be listed here with
The
all
town is
the-
actually on the back page, the
Okay.
very back one here.
Okay.
We're gonna make this type bigger right here because for me it's just too small. But I'm old, so there's that. And then we made Troy be the contact person. We do have to change his phone number.
You know, that's police department.
I don't know, you know, that's what, interesting enough, that's what it comes up when I look on the web,
Oh,
so.
really?
Change the last 4 digits to, it's 2245?
You know, that, the picture's unique, but I think eventually we'll upgrade it with like a nice sunrise or nice sunset. It looks like a tornado storm.
That's just gonna.
Or the corner of Lincoln Park.
Bad weather.
Yeah.
But it's really recent, cause
Like a rainy
that old house has been remodeled across the street, it's fairly recent.
Well, I've seen, my other clients, for example, have a photo of the welcome to
Yeah.
sign,
Something
right?
like that, yeah.
Or
When we
the
have those
sunset on the
built,
way
we can
back.
do that.
Yeah. Or there's some beautiful pictures that you could probably take of, you know, a nice field or something that would go really well.
Oh, I've got a perfect one if I can.
Mountain view, you need to.
Well, I've been telling Mary the last few mornings to drop off Andy, not this morning, it was dark, for Valley, but.
What about on the front page? I mean, I don't know, what do y'all think
I
about the
don't-
picture on the front page?
It's not portraying Platteville.
It makes it look a little too,
Business.
well,
Industrial.
I think the business
Industrial.
industrial. I mean, I understand that the idea of having business, the idea of having something like this to show them that, yeah, we do have business, we do have industry. I don't know, what about a picture of, for instance, Oxy's building or something like that?
We
It
can't
makes it-
find any photos. If I had a photo, I would be happy to change it out, and I'm actually
It's
happy
just
to
something we may
change it out.
consider changing out
Yeah,
as time goes by,
eventually,
because
yeah.
it does look a little bit too,
The front could eventually be one of those nice little entrance signs on the corridor, maybe by the Fort Vasquez or something, you know,
So
like.
here's some of the photos I do have. You'll see some of them, you'll recognize some of them from.
Yeah.
I've got one of the church, for example, but it's not very high resolution, so it has to go in a much smaller format than what we've got. It's pretty, but it didn't really, it wasn't the message I was looking for, but I love the icicles. Then there's one of the photos that we had, there's the one you just saw. Beautiful photos of sunsets, but see how we're trying to, here's a great one, but it's like now your fire station is there, so we can get a good picture of the fire station.
Wait a couple months before you take a picture.
That's right, just, I thought it had to be done by February.
Well, we have to adopt it in February, but these pictures are super easy. I can change them out in like 10 seconds for you. Once we get the pictures we want, we can change out the pictures really easily. And that's not something that's.
We're kind of stuck with what we have until we get the pictures.
Yeah, even when you go online and if you want to, I'd love any help. Sometimes for clients, what I can do is I can go online and I can Google Platteville, photos of Platteville, and some beautiful ones will come up, and then you just reach out and contact that person and say, can we have your permission to use your photo? There with the railroad, and there's some beautiful of the railroad. There's no way to prove it's in Platteville. I mean, it just looks like an oncoming, you know, when they send the old trains through on their trip from Denver up to Cheyenne, beautiful photos of the train, but.
More data for LaSalle.
Yeah.
LaSalle.
And I know for like the schools, there's a website for the school and they have like a Facebook page with tons of pictures.
Yeah.
Could
Is
we
there
use
someone at the school that you could recommend I talk to?
Emily
specifically?
Bridges? I can talk to her tomorrow.
Can you? Oh, thank you.
And just
That
give
would be
her
awesome.
your email?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if she's got one, you know, typically what we really like to have is kids playing, or kids in a classroom learning, or
She
something
puts all
that
that on the
shows,
website.
yeah,
Or
exactly.
she's in charge of that, so she
Yeah.
takes a lot of
You got a
pictures.
picture on the wall behind you?
I do.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
kind of a nice, shows you.
Yeah, I wonder if we could get a high quality digital reproduction
I
of
don't
that.
know
We have some newer aerial photos that
Lovely.
are good
Show
quality.
that,
I can take them, and at the very least you can superimpose them in the background too.
that's
Yeah.
even green,
That
must
would
have
be
been
nice.
taken in the summer, so there's green in it.
So anything like that, Mary, yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great. Let me check something else while I've got this up. That bill. Where's my comp plan? Are there any photos that, there it is, right in front of me. Your comp plan has a couple of photos, they were more, sort of what I call comp plan related, so I really couldn't figure out how to use them because they were photos of the comp plan process and
No, really.
drawings and, yeah. So, alright, that's what I thought. That's what my memory told me. Okay, so I hear you on the photos. Any help you can give would be great, and they're super easy to change out. So anything we can do like that would be good. And I do think that, regardless, I think it's a great idea to spend some, like $500 to have a young photographer come in and take some high quality photographs and. All right. Anything else on the brochure that you can think of right now before I move over to the big plan, the longer one? All right, let me come back to page 1. You can see we tried to put something different on the cover. One of the suggestions we had was, again, to take this photo and put it on the history page and take the town hall photo, which I'll show you in a second, and flip them. So that's my little comment already. And then, this is the history page, so this photo would just be flipped onto the front page. And if we have another photo that would be good for the front page, we can easily exchange that, or if we peel the sunrise, or welcome to Platteville, or anything, yeah. And as a matter of fact, it's, generally speaking, it's a good idea to change your photos out from time to time anyway. It shows that you updated the plan, you don't really need to do much work, but it creates a new, catchy, oh, that looks a little bit different. They have, you guys all know this, in the marketing world, they have this branding or this image. But the image that you create here is typically with the, the curve here that looks a little bit old-timey. And it's typically with the fonts, it's typically with those sorts of things that you don't need to really worry as much about the actual photo. as you do the technical aspects of the brand image, so. You can see what I did do is I went with a relatively, forward-thinking font. I didn't go Old West on your font. We do that with clients, but it doesn't feel like Platteville is really at the Old West stage anymore. It feels like you're moving forward. But fonts are super easy things to change. So anyway, page 1 and page 2. We had a comment, we had our librarian, thank goodness we have a librarian look at my plan for me, because there are a couple capitalizations that she caught. This cover is really a letter from the town board. Now, if we have a photo of the town board, this is normally where I stick a photo of the town board. If the town board prefers not to have a photo of themselves in the plan, that's perfectly fine. So, this is actually intended to be a letter from them. It talks a little bit about the plan, that we built on some past plans, and as we can continue to grow, we're hoping the community continues to help us. We gathered a whole bunch of feedback. The plan's intended to be flexible. We want to continue to hear from you. Please reach out to us, and thank you very much. And then listing the Platteville Board of Trustees here, along with please attend our regular meetings. Never hurts to send out a marketing broadcast. And then the town manager.
I would modify the word trustees, start with the mayor, the mayor pro tem, and then put trustees. Just a sequential thing, like that.
Sure.
Kind of thing. So start with Adrian and Larry, and then go forward, Spencer, and then.
Should we go alphabetically after that?
Probably. Would it be correct?
Will do. Okay. History. And again, I pulled this right off of some websites. There was a suggestion though to change that word colonial town, which actually was pulled right off a website, into Old West, or some other name. Colonial apparently had some connotations with that individual. So that's my little note there that we're gonna change the word colonial.
Yeah, we've never been colonial, have we? Sure.
I don't think so.
We need to talk to Discover
Not
Well.
unless it goes
Really?
way
I'll send a note
Yeah,
over
it's
to Jennifer over there at Discover Well.
It's more of a settlement town.
Yeah, really.
So surely you see Fort Vasquez here, and it might be fun to put a picture of Fort Vasquez in here on that history
That'd be very
page.
cool.
So I think it'll be pretty easy to find a photo of Fort Vasquez. I can even reach out to them directly. I'm sure they've got some marketing photos they would allow us to use. It talks a little bit, what I did was I got rid of everything that sounded even remotely negative and kept all the history stuff that sounded positive, right? Because we get to create our own plan, and history is history. If somebody wanted to look us up, they could. What I want to do is just give people the sense of who and how we started in Platteville. So we started for a trading post back in Fort Vasquez. We were described as a hustling little frontier town. Our first general store was in the 1870s, had a store, a post office, a small hotel. Then we took over the post office. The population was just about 50 people. We talked a little bit about the crops, coal mine, which I didn't know you guys had a coal mine here back in the 1880s. Some of the other earliest businesses included an ice house, a cheese factory, how things go full circle, huh? And a brick factory. By 1910, you had 4 general stores, 2 banks, 2 bakeries, 2 barbershops. There's a 2 theme going on in here.
See, that's what they're talking
2
about, the
weekly
good old
newspapers, 2
days.
hotels. So, and it said you served everybody. It talks about the Methodist Church, which is one of the more significant historical buildings we have in town. And that's kind of where we stop, is in the late 1800s, because that's about all the room we had to fit. So one of the questions I usually ask is there anything of importance historically? And you know, history can be like 30 years, 50 years backwards. If you think of something that we should add here or point out that's significant,
Why was Platteville more prosperous in 1910 than it is in 2020?
one thing that it didn't say anything about in the history was when Union Pacific came through town. So, I mean, the railroad's a big part of town, so it occurred to me that maybe we should mention, I mean, we mentioned the railroad throughout this, but we didn't mention it specifically in the history section, so.
Do we mention something about the,
Pickle dog?
I thought there was pickle, right.
well, on this original plat trail, the town was founded by the Platte River Land Company.
Wow.
So it's not a railroad town, it was a
Land
Platte River
company.
Land Company, because this is original plat.
There's your
It also,
coal land up
Do you
there.
have any high-res photos or decent photos of that plat?
well, that would be a cool one to have.
Wouldn't it though, when your
Yeah.
photographer comes through, make sure he or she takes some of those for you?
Yeah.
Because some of these, you know, I can superimpose them in the back and it's just like a backdrop, like a watermark almost,
Oh,
but
this
it
would be-
looks really cool.
Could
That'd
they
be great.
take a picture of that? They couldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd
But
wanna
they're-
take it out of the glass and be real careful with it, like the white glove treatment, but
And I also heard, and I like the person's name, but everybody saw Platte River, I also heard a different twist of that, Platte was named because it was a village on the south, on the Platte.
There.
That's Platteville,
Yeah, right.
so I don't know how to word that, but.
I can figure something out.
Was the date still 1871 on that? What date is on that?
This one says July 17th, 1871 was when the plat was filed.
This is 1872.
This is,
Well, it's pretty close to that then.
yeah,
You know, it is interesting when I do these, because I pull them off some historical website. It's interesting how many mistakes we find on the historical website to
yeah.
here.
Pick it
It's
up.
fascinating to me, yeah. But it was interesting, it said you had 2 weekly newspapers back then. If there is any, you know, History Colorado, I know those guys quite well. If there was any way to find one of those original newspapers or a photo of those original
The museum
newspapers.
possibly have something like that.
You would think
museum-wide.
so.
Yeah, but
Have you been inside the museum?
yes, but I didn't see if there was a newspaper. That's a wonderful idea.
And there might be some good photo ops in the
They
museum
make,
too.
that's right.
Who should I contact over there?
I do Meg,
Meg?
Green,
All right, will do.
I mean, most of them like Lucy or Dorothy, but Meg, like,
Perfect. And again, if you come across something, have a contact, or want to email me, all of that will only make this document that much better.
The library possibly have those old newspapers.
they could. Brian may have some. I don't know.
I'm thinking the museum might have
Probably.
it more so possibly, but I don't know, maybe.
Cause those are more archives, you don't wanna, they're probably protected by now,
It's John
I'm
Fox.
guessing.
The library might have something as well.
The next page, what we wanted to do was, without going all super graphic, high-end, high-tech looking, is use infographics as a way to tell a little bit of the story about some of what I call the amenities. So we just labeled this page Pure Platteville. I will let you know that one of the suggestions was to add an icon that we would then label something like natural resources, or oil and gas, or extraction, or energy. So I'm gonna come back and ask you about that in a second. But that was the idea, is to say, you know, so you'll see some repeats of this from your marketing brochure, to let people know, you know, what's going on here.
There again, I mean, the fort's not anywhere on here.
Right, in this document, I would probably mention the fort once in each
History or
document,
something.
so we can leave it in history, or we can move it back over to here as, you know, one of the amenities, as well.
But they get more of an amenity than the railroad.
Oh, well, yeah. So I'm gonna make that note, Fort Vasquez.
People look at it as the railroad that just goes through there. Makes a lot of sense. Of course, it's also, it doesn't stop here. Used to.
So I'm gonna put some, I'm gonna make some of these, instead of singular, I'll make them plural, cause you have parks, you have schools, so, farms. But in terms of the issue around how to highlight the oil and energy industry, which is very important, an icon's not gonna be the problem. I think I need some feedback on what you want me to label the icon. If you label it natural resources, sometimes that's a little misleading, but you could do an icon of an oil drilling rig, which would make it really obvious. Or you could just say oil and energy,
Oil for energy production.
energy production, something like that.
I was gonna say energy. Energy production.
Well, so you have oil and gas, and you have power plant out here, and we have different sources of energy. We have, not a whole lot of wind, but we have solar farms in the area. So that,
Yeah, that's a good.
so energy is probably a good word.
Okay, perfect, will do.
The distinction between agriculture and farming, just more things, I mean, you got two different icons, or,
Right.
I don't know.
For the same
For this,
thing.
kind of the same thing.
Well, you know, it's interesting, I did them separately on purpose, but it's easy to undo them. So, when you think agriculture, most people typically would think large-scale agriculture. Like fields of, not necessarily like a family farm, but fields of corn, or fields of wheat, or sugar beets, or lettuce, or whatever it is they happen to be growing. So I pulled out farms specifically to imply that people still have smaller scale farms, or little mini ranches, or whatever you wanna call them, which is a different lifestyle than agriculture. So that's why they're separate, but it's not like it's the right thing to do, but that's why.
The dairy farms come under agriculture too, with that.
If they're large scale production, I would consider them under there, but if they're just a small, you know, you got your 30 head of dairy farm cattle like we did growing up.
No, I would add, on farms, I would call it family farms.
That makes it more obvious,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Good idea.
I was gonna say something like community icon or family farm would be good.
And could we include ranches in that?
Yeah. Do you want something separate for ranches, or would we say family farms and ranches?
I think that's just fine the way it is, really, but to me it is.
Sure, you tell me some young lady just west of Platteville was named Rodeo Queen or something.
Is that right? Well,
Got at the,
Stock show? Wow,
yeah, just
that's a big deal.
Mhm.
to round off some name I never heard of, is just on a ranch just west of Platteville, on Town of 34.
One of my clients has been the Colorado Fair Bureau Association. Anyway, it's the group of people that run all the fairs around the state. And oh my gosh, I had no idea that rodeo princess, rodeo queen thing was such a thing. At their annual conference, which was down in Denver last year, there were probably 500 young women snazzed out, like the bling and the hats and the boots and the outfits and it was like, and they teach them how to do presentations and public speaking. It's a leadership thing.
Right.
No idea. I did not have blame. I worked my hardest. So, eventually, what we'll start doing is start using these icons in sort of if we break out some marketing pieces. So if we wanted to break out some marketing around the railroad, we'd use this icon and put it on that piece of paper where we said, there's a rail spur, and we use that railroad icon on this piece of land. Or, you know, there's agricultural opportunity here. So, that's the intent behind starting to use this document in a living way. The next page is a section on current economy, and it does again repeat some of those things that you saw in the marketing brochure. So this is a little bit on the top about Weld County, pulled from the Weld County page. And then this is back to the piece from the marketing brochure. So we're gonna make those same changes here, you know, that word exponentially, etc. Same as marketing brochure that we wanted to adapt or remove. And then what I wanted to do was pull out a couple what I thought were important things that people typically look for or ask about when they're thinking about locating here, locating a business here, moving here, building. They typically ask about home values, to see what the cost of a home will be or what it might cost them to construct a home. The nice thing about your home value is it's still low enough that that's very attractive for a wide range of people to move here. This does not exist in most of Greeley. It does not exist in Fort Collins, it does not exist in Loveland, it does not exist in Windsor. Greeley is,
Outside of Marshall, I don't think you can buy a home, to be honest.
I don't think you can get something in Bible.
Well, it's a medium.
it is the median.
It's a middle, but I don't know how many are
Yeah.
more than that, so you know.
You could also do, if you wanted to be, well, most people do their own research once they look
Sure.
at this. But for example, Zillow will have some information on average home sale, right, in the past If you don't have a lot of home sales, that's a very misleading number though, because you might have all your home sales in the $500,000 mark because they're ranches, so it totally skews your number. But
The one other thing I thought of adding to this,
yes,
would we add labor force?
yeah, totally.
It
Like
goes-
the available labor first?
I don't know what it is at Platteville, but I'm just saying it goes with this theme on this page is the economy, businesses come in, where they're gonna draw a labor force from. Platteville doesn't have a lot, but I don't know
No,
if
that's
it's Well
perfect.
County, I mean, this is just Platteville on water, but
Yeah, let me,
I don't know if that's what or not.
what was fun was I get to talk to the state demographer a lot, and she's great. I love her, and I love her staff. One of the things that they did for me is they actually created a profile for Platteville. That's the Esri data. So as soon as I find that, the reason it's so interesting, there it is it's got all the details and the data in it that they can pull. Some of it they can't pull. For example, they could not pull housing stock data for me specific to Platteville. And I don't think you guys have a current track on exact housing stock. Sometimes people want to know that, how many single family versus multifamily. Because if I'm a multifamily developer, I want to know if there's an opportunity. What we can do with this is we can go out and market to a multifamily developer and say, hey, we know we don't have the multifamily that you want. You don't need a statistic. We know. And so here are some opportunities. But so, you talk about the population trends and where the idea is, where it might be going. But this is kind of cool stuff if you're kind of a geek like me. But you can see that some of these look familiar. The labor workforce that they have, there's household income, educational attainment, race, firms and jobs, industry, base industries, job and population forecast. I could probably ask them to run available workforce, but I don't know that they're gonna be any more specific than this for Weld County. So for example, right about now, the labor force is projected to be at 173.5, growing at 2.9. You move out 20 years, it basically almost doubles and continued to grow at 2.2. So it's a significant number.
If you did put workforce, it would be like area or county workforce to draw
Yeah.
that population.
Well, I
Or
think that,
workforce
yeah.
in-
Yeah, and I think we might, let me flip back over to here. Let me see how well we show Greeley on the map. We might wanna mention in here labor force and workforce too.
Besides a small business, if you actually do get that, someone at grocery store, I mean, you're gonna have to find employees for it.
Yeah. Can do. So I talk here about UNC, University of Northern Colorado. I talk here about Colorado State University. I talk here about Ames, Front Range Community College, expansive technical and continuing education programs. Because that, I think, is an often underutilized economic asset to be so close to two very well-recognized universities in CSU and UNC. And if you wanted to, I did not, you can even go to like UC Boulder, because that's not far of a drive from here either. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's why I didn't do it, but you can add other things, right? So.
My sister's a professor over there, so.
Oh. My nephew, when he came and took a tour, he toured two in Colorado, UNC and, CSU and UC Boulder, and he liked UC Boulder better. He's from Washington State, you can't blame him. So here we go with this geographic location again. I did it slightly differently here, but of course we'll amend this map the same way. So for the star, open space, and the locator, we'll do the same map. Whatever the map is, it'll be the same in both. But the other thing I wanted to really sort of highlight here, because I had more room to do it, was the three main things: air, highway, and rail. Because that's what business owners typically take a look for, are those three main things. And the reason it's here is because I had more space. It can easily also be in the marketing brochure. We'll have to shift some things around, but it could go there too. So we talk about how close you are, how easy it is to ship things, opportunities to partner. etc. The next page is demographics again, slightly different demographics than are in your marketing brochure, because I didn't want to repeat too many things. This is unique to Platteville. This came out of that profile I just showed you. So 2000 to 2017, so you can kind of see the trend, which is good to see. And then the population forecast for Weld County. They don't have a population forecast for Platteville themselves. So you can see how that population is just forecasted too. I mean, if any of us are around in 2050, I certainly hope there's an alternate form of transportation, because Highway 85 is gonna be crazy talk.
I can
You
see.
might highlight Platteville and Weld County so they know there's a difference, that's not
And then I'd
just
probably be
Platteville.
driving, so.
Oh, that.
Yeah, and we can do that by maybe making, see how Platteville's here and Weld County's here, we can make those bolder
Yeah, so
or
that if you can show that
make
it's
color.
not the same, it's not talking just about Platteville.
okay, I'll have him make it an actual color so it stands out a little bit more.
When you see that spike in population from basically 15 to 17, that's just 55 homes at Rogers Farm. You know, you put 3 people in a home, I mean, there you go, there's a couple hundred people.
Yeah, right there.
Exponential.
But that's a very small impact. We were at 200-300 home
One
subdivision.
little subdivision,
Yep.
and one builder that's willing to come in and take over and, yeah. Guy's pretty aggressive around reading too.
Oh my, yeah. Very much.
So this is another one of those bar charts with a slightly different take. Remember the one back in the marketing brochure we looked at? This one specifically is to industries. So now, this is no surprise, right? The largest industry, not business, but industry, is mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction, by far. I mean, those little gray spots are representative of the national average. I always find that interesting too. We can remove those. I left them here just so you could see them. But the national average on mining and quarrying and oil and gas is way over here, and here we are, way over here. Construction, management of companies and enterprises, wholesale trade, then it gets down to ag, manufacturing, government, surprisingly enough, is quite low, and it goes down from there. I didn't save space for housing data. If we have it, I would love to be able to put it in, and that's typically, I wouldn't do numbers because our numbers are small, I do percentages. What percentage of our housing stock is single family? What percentage of our housing stock is multifamily? What percentage might be manufactured
We can
housing?
work on that, Mary, can't we, from the utility bills? 'Cause I mean, we
Work on that,
If
yeah.
you can't, we can,
We
you
can
know.
whip that up like right now.
Yeah, I don't know that we can pull it out of utility bills, but we can drive around,
well, I'm familiar with the town enough where I can
yeah.
work with Charlotte and say, you got your government housing, you got your Valley Village, you know, and even
Yeah.
Old Town, most of it is multifamily, but it's single family for the most
Or
part.
even from the assessor's webpage, you can tell from those aerial shots
Yeah.
where
Yeah, we can do
the
something.
limit of
And if we can get it,
multifamily.
that's great. If we have to wait until we update it with photographs, that's fine too. So we can stick another graph in there as well.
I think it would be important to have there though.
Yeah.
I think it would be, the reason you normally do it is for individuals we are either trying to attract to develop housing, and we're aiming for a specific type of housing, as well as for somebody to see, sometimes when people look at places, one of the things that might attract people to us is the fact that we do have a much higher percentage of single-family housing than we do of multifamily, which says something again about who we are, so.
Some communities are becoming just purely multifamily.
Yes.
You drive east side of Longmont, can't line it up, all apartments.
West Greeley,
Yep.
Okay.
more than they've been, more than they are out to own.
That's the E generation, Jeff.
I just can't afford it.
They're paying just as, or more to rent than they are to own.
They just don't wanna be tied down. It's amazing. Now, the first thing I wanted was to be tied down. I wanted to own a house. I wanted to buy something.
Too easy to move now, I guess. Jobs are available.
So here's that opportunities map we created. Again, this would be a map that we would flip back over to the marketing brochure, and we just wanted to really show sort of a broad stroke where some of the significant opportunities were. One of the reasons I don't have Main Street on this map is it's our intent to create a Main Street map that sort of shows 85 to 66, that shows that commercial core of town, but that also shows where your libraries, your parks, your schools, your museum, the fire station is in relationship
That
to
would be more
that.
important than this map, right?
Well, yes, for the people that we're attracting, they wanna see this too. So I'd recommend we add that Main Street map, and a thought just occurred to me about that I'll show you something, I'll bounce it off with you before you leave tonight. In other words, you can't get out of here without talking to me. And I think over time, what will happen is, like I said, you can slide a specific piece. You can take this map, we can just insert a star, and we can slide a specific piece of paper about that location that we're trying to market or let someone know about, so that they can find it on this map, and then they have the breakout too. So again, this will be labeled growth area. It will no longer be town limits. And there's your Main Street map. My graphic designer is not passive aggressive in the least. He just tells me what he wants. I am waiting for the map, Cheryl. And then what we did is now we're going into, after all this sort of background and information that helps sort of market us and set the stage, now we're going into how we created the plan. So we talked about the process that we used. We talked about what a vision, mission, you can see the upside down pyramid that takes us all the way down to this economic prosperity for Platteville. This is the vision. This little comment here is that we need a comma. In case you didn't know, the vision is that we are committed to growing and being innovative, collaborative, and creative with a full appreciation of our location and heritage, which include agriculture and energy production support services. This might grammatically, does anybody know, should this say includes? I don't know, I'm gonna check. I can ask my mom, she's always telling me, yeah, my grammar is bad. And then the mission. We provide exceptional services in a fiscally responsible manner for our residents, visitors, and business community, while planning for future growth to maintain the unique quality and character that is pure Platteville. Took a little license there. The pure Platteville. All right, here we go into what you guys created. I know you've been waiting anxiously for this moment, so I saved it till the very last part of the evening. We talked about the comp plan and how we wanted to tie into the comp plan and build off the comp plan. And the comp plan has 7 plan themes, some of which don't really apply to our document, but certainly 5 of those themes fit very closely, as we talked last time, with what you guys were up to. So here's where I can use a little help. I'm going to show you the next, well, you can take a look at the next page really quick, which goes into a more graphic representation of what we're up to. So, community character. And then I talked about the 3 areas in community character that we're focusing on. Overall image and identity, downtown vitality, historical preservation. Then the economic development area, which is business attraction, business retention, business expansion, and housing. The environment area, which for us in this plan really means both oil and gas development and sustaining our agriculture. Growth management, which really means we're really trying to retain who we are. Business-friendly regulations, what are we going to do about annexation, land use, managing growth? And then the infrastructure and amenities section, which was, we talked a lot about the access issues of Highway 85, water, traffic circulation, the trail network, and recreational opportunities. So what we did is we laid out those 5 areas of focus and sort of briefly touched on the major pieces of those. So, go ahead.
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer, perfect, thank you. I feel, here's my reaction to this. I'd like to figure out how to make this page a little more graphic.
Yes, too.
It's boring.
It's boring, it's too.
And people aren't gonna read that much, I don't think.
No.
Thank you. I was thinking, yeah, I laid it all out there, but I don't like, for example, I don't really like the way these little arrows turned out.
No.
So anyway,
Those
thank you for
arrows
that.
are kind of mixed into your paragraphs and you need to stand out a little bit.
Yes. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I will figure this out. We'll make it look much better by the next time you see it. I do like the way this turned out a little bit. Sometimes I think it's a little fuzzy, so I'm working on the resolution. But what this then does is it takes those areas, like if you come back here to community character, it then says, well, what exactly are we doing around community character? And we also created an icon for that. So our goals around community character is what you guys talked about, what we created: improve the structure and historical nature of existing buildings, improve the structure and historical, that's the second one, sorry about that. There's a repeat. Build on the small town atmosphere in downtown. And then projects. So what are the things that would really make the most difference? And again, this is exactly what you all told me. We adopted a local designation for historical significance. We can research and publish historical information on buildings in town. We can secure grants. We can adopt and fund a facade improvement program with matching grants. We can adopt and fund a downtown beautification program. We need to create a gathering place downtown, and we need to add more downtown events such as a farmer's market. This all seemed to fit in the community character area. Yeah, you could definitely say it fits into economic development, absolutely, because pretty much everything this plan is designed to do is economic development, but it really seemed to fit in community character. Then in that economic development area of focus, the goals are to expand existing Platteville retail businesses and to create retail opportunities, which means buildings, space, and support for new businesses. How will we do that? Create a recognition program, create a shop local program, establish a chamber or business association by 2020. Hint, hint, thing on the wall, names, there's a lot of blank space. Create a marketing brochure, and this was specific to businesses, right? We can use our overall marketing brochure, and then we can start to fine tune it as a basis for another brochure that's specific to attracting businesses. And then market Platteville to specific new businesses. Adopt and fund a business expansion, attraction, and retention program. Fund and hire a part-time economic development staff member. Leverage local businesses to assist with funding and resources for these projects. I rephrased that a little. I think y'all were thinking about maybe asking some specific businesses to do that, and I sort of spread that language out just a little bit. And then for the environment, promote Platteville as a place for agriculture and oil and gas development businesses to thrive. Project might be to research unique possibilities to leverage existing assets, such as your rail access, the grain silos, large tracts of agricultural land, and so on. The next page just continues that. For growth management, business forward regulations, adopting updated regulations that favor the right kind of businesses. Sometimes I think some towns might not be specific enough, and so they start to offer incentive programs, for example, and then the wrong kinds of businesses come in to be incentivized. And I'm not suggesting Family Dollar is the wrong kind of business, but it's certainly not a business I would recommend incentivizing. So tailoring that's going to be important. And then increasing the diversity of housing opportunities. Develop relationships with various commercial, retail, and housing developers to determine the right fit for Platteville. And then under infrastructure and amenities, secure additional water resources. Increase safety for access to Highway 85 and within town, and create more outdoor recreational activities for all. I'm going to move citizens, that's a negative word in today's society. Remove citizens, say residents. Fund and purchase water rights, increase local control on Main Street, complete trail or other access to the river, construct a splash park amenity, creative reuse of existing structure for a recreational center. One thing I will say here is it's pretty clear that the town of Platteville is already doing a ton of things in and around these areas. I think it would be important to add some of the major projects that Platteville is working on, but not quite through with. The wastewater treatment plant is one I can see definitely adding to this list. So some of those things I think still need to be recognized and added to this list because you're working on them. For example, I know that local control on Main Street, I didn't mention CDOT, but we all know that's what that means.
Go back to the previous page. And
Yes.
It's minor, but you can darken up that green,
This.
so the font stands out, it's just under. You need a darker shade green maybe, just so it's easier to read.
Yep. Absolutely. That's not.
Very minor, just.
No, that's perfect.
same one shown, so.
That's a part, yeah.
You kind of delineated out oil and gas and the goal, but not, you didn't name any project. I think we were thinking, I'm not really sure, maybe you guys can help me out. We were thinking trying to leverage the oil and gas industry to help out with that project somehow. Not only agriculture, but you said unique possibilities to leverage existing assets such as rail access, grain silos, large trucks. I was thinking that we were gonna try to use or get oil and gas to help with.
And they're big supporters and financial partners with some of these projects.
I don't know how to put it.
I mean, on the,
Instead of just saying so on, just include
Just
that.
add food.
Yeah, I was actually, typing as I was listening, and what I wrote down was, I need to type this, because my spell check just got it. Utilize community assets and business resources to assist with plans and outreach.
Yeah, then you.
Or something along, I was gonna add a second
Something
line
like that.
to it somehow to call it out specifically, because you're right, I did up here. but I didn't down there.
yeah, you need a second project item in there, because it's,
We can make the space smaller too. But yeah, I see exactly where you're heading with that.
that's cheating.
It's quite alright. It feels a little crammed on this page anyway, and we played around with the layout, and I might just end up doing 3 pages instead of 2, because it just feels a little crammed. So, I prefer to have more white space as opposed to less white space, so. And then the final one, this adorable little picture, and again, it's just a contact. It's sort of a closing statement, and how do we contact Platteville if we need them.
Diane collaborations, she loved it.
I think it was Mary's favorite too. I mean, if you think about what we're trying to represent, to some extent, this is it, right? It's the little girl or boy, the future, they're wearing cowboy boots, right?
Mhm.
They're standing in front of a massive oil drilling rig going, yippee! The only thing missing is like 5 siblings and a dog. That's, you know, if we could have that, it would be perfect. Anything else that you can think of that would make this plan better? Because what we'll do is I'll take it, we'll start working on it tomorrow. I'll have it done in the next 2 or 3 days. We will then send it back out to you guys, and it'll be the document that we use with maybe some minor revisions if we catch something that's easy to fix at the community meeting. What will happen from there is I'll sit down with Troy and I'll say, okay, let's put some reality to this, right? Let's put some real numbers and some real dates to this. And we'll create the specific implementation plan that goes with this. So this is more still the big picture with some pretty specific guidance. This is really what we'd like to do. But then obviously somebody like Troy or Mary has to go out and actually do it. So that's the next step after we get done here. You will see the implementation plan when the board goes to talk about it in their work session or in their meeting on the 18th of February. It's probably not something you should worry too much about unless you volunteered for something, in which case you'll probably see your name on it. Just warning. Any other questions before I finish up with you about the business group tonight? Remember, this isn't the last time you'll see it. I'm hoping that you'll continue to work on it in the sense of, even if you're not on some sort of a committee, that when we go to update this every quarter or at least once a year, that you'll pipe up and say, hey, I've got this great photo, or you should ask so-and-so about this, or let's add this, or.
Question for you, one of the things you've done, looking at the brochure. So the developer gets in line, grabs this, he picks up a copy, he's looking at this. Would it be worthwhile having another page about potential development costs?
Sure.
Does that go with this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when I've been working with the Hunter Development Group, who's building the 7-Eleven across the street, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about water sewer rates, tap fees, system investment fees, impact fees. And I don't know if that goes with this, or is that a secondary discussion?
I personally think it belongs here. The only concern I have is we either want to create it as a separate insert, because they tend to change regularly. And sometimes you forget to update the brochure. I would wanna put it either as sort of a standalone page that you can see like remove and replace, or even just a standalone page that you update and insert into the rest of it. I honestly don't see Platteville spending a whole lot of money printing these, because almost everything's done online, so it'd be really easy to.
I wonder though if that's not better in a document after they've decided to.
That was my question.
Investigate,
At what point?
rather than, I mean, this is to get them in the door.
That might scare them away.
Might
Before they even come in the door, you know?
Well,
If they'll come in here and see what we have, then they're gonna take the numbers and they're gonna compare them to the numbers in Frederick or Firestone, and they're gonna say, okay, it's gonna be cheaper over here.
Yeah.
Let's go over here.
And that was my question, is where does that come in? Is it a separate document that I develop on specific cost for development potential? Because I could make it more than one page, that's a problem, because there's more involved in, because besides the cost, and if they're annexing the town, there's a whole nother section on what it takes to annex, zone,
Well,
subdivide.
and then there's the how long does your planning process take me
Exactly,
question.
so yeah.
And you're right there, right here, they know who to contact, right?
Well,
They-
what I can see though doing is, and, I've done this when I was actually working for a couple of my other agencies, is that we did create a handout about the, development process handout. And, it said, our average time in planning for this type of project is X weeks, our average time in planning for this type of project is in Y weeks. Here's a link, or here are our current costs. And we formatted it to look like that. But then we had the staff, that was Grand Junction, we had the staff to update that. We had somebody assigned literally to do
Well-
nothing but update our stuff, so we were.
That's why I like that deal we're going next with we have a youth committee, we have a parks committee, basically, having an economic development committee. It may not meet monthly, but I would say at least quarterly, to at least review and update, or at least twice a year.
So, one of the things that you guys said, and one of the things that I knew coming in, is that the town was very interested in having a group of people help them continue to talk about, discuss, make recommendations, make decisions around economic development. And you don't have a chamber, you don't have like a downtown business group. So that's the idea, is we form a group. I think my first question is, what would you guys like to call it? I just labeled it a business committee, but it could be an economic development committee. Right now, it could be sort of tied and linked to the town, but eventually I think the goal is that it sort of becomes its own entity in the future. Because if you become, say, a 501c3, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, you can get grants and funding and resources that the town can't get. So you can kind of leverage.
Cause didn't there used to be like the quarter 85 thing or whatever, kind of that did that same thing? Where it was from Platteville, LaSalle, Gilcrest, and all the business
South Central Chamber
owners.
Weld.
Yeah.
And what happened to that?
Probably about 6 years ago, I went to a meeting, and the only ones in attendance was school superintendent, library, Diane, me, and a representative from United Way. Not a single business showed up.
Okay.
We were support services. And
I would steer it more towards, in the beginning, economic development, you call it a business committee, then people, you would be able to attract, people would think, oh, well, I have to own a business, I have to be, but you have people who are strictly interested in the economic development of the area, then it opens it up to people who wouldn't necessarily think they're qualified, you know what I mean?
A question for the board, if you call it a committee, is the board required to like appoint people to the committee formally and do that?
if it's part of the committee's board. Right now, there's a business committee, but it hasn't taken off the ground. Only 2 of the 5 committees the mayor came up with have actually taken off the ground.
So we kind of have a blank slate. If we wanted to call it an economic development committee, we're good to go, okay? All right,
I
and,
think it was originally name the finance committee, which I think the intent of, if I can speak for the mayor, I think it was to encourage people to learn about the finances of the town, where the money comes from, where it goes, the different funds that we operate. Given that it's a pretty dry material, there really wasn't much interest in that. And I say that because I was named to be chairman of the committee.
Oh, no.
And I couldn't,
I told you I'd be on the committee.
I couldn't dig up enough people to, take an interest in it, I guess.
Well, I would recommend something, if we do form an economic development committee. I recommend, at least right now, you leave your sort of purpose a little wide open, which is why I just said implement, or you could use work with, implement's kind of scary, these plan documents. So in other words, you know, when we get down to the actual steps and, when we get down to saying, is this really gonna work this way that we thought it would, you guys meet. I would personally maybe think about for the first year meeting pretty regularly, once a month, as you start to work with these things. At a bare minimum, I would say once a quarter, because that's really how often these types of plans need to be updated. Otherwise you lose track and you lose focus and don't know where you've been. So I would recommend one time a month to start with, but if that scares you, the bare minimum would be one time a quarter.
But every other month.
Bye.
You can also go by monthly. There are other options. You could go weekly. You could go no.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. It will take some persistence. This is kind of, if you think about gaining momentum, there's usually you have to start pretty strong. If you don't start with some strong intent and some motivation, then it kind of falls a little flat. And speaking of which, anytime you do that, you're going to have somebody volunteer to be the chair. The super cool thing about being the chair is, number one, you get to decide when the meetings are. It works for your schedule, and you don't care about the rest of the group. And also, you get to delegate everything, because you're the chair, right? I mean, you get to decide what the agenda is, where the meetings are, and then you delegate everything. So if you're going to volunteer for something, I recommend being the chair. But also, we need people. So I would like you guys to think about this, and then I can either write it down, or you can write it down yourselves. I gave you a little sticky note there, too. If you think it's important enough to sort of move forward with this plan and to keep momentum moving, I would love to have you write your name down there. If you think to yourself, for any reason whatsoever, now's not the time for me, but I will be happy to go ask Jimmy Sue Joe, because that person would be really good for the committee, then please write that down. I, Cheryl, will go ask Jimmy Sue Joe to be on this committee. What we'll work on will be sort of the general outline of what the committee's gonna do, those sorts of things. It'll be super helpful to have a chair.
I have a question, like, there's a lot of stuff in here that we wanna try to do, and it makes sense to me that you would maybe have a committee and just focus on one part of the plan instead of trying to focus on everything. That just makes more sense to me.
And I think that's a great point, I agree, and I think maybe the committee should decide what they wanna focus on. Because in my experience with these, community members kind of come and go, and you get somebody comes in who has this passion for a shop local program. And everybody else is like, hey, have fun, Cheryl, with that shop local program, but because I'm so passionate about it, I get it done. It wasn't on your radar, but it's on mine, and that's why I wanna be there. So to be open to that kind of flexibility and shifting. But I think the committee, whoever the committee is, can decide these are the three main things we want to focus on for whatever reason. Because we think it'll have the most traction, because we know the most about it, because we think it's the best thing to focus, whatever, and go from there, absolutely. But I'd say the plan as a whole is your playing field, right? Plus anything new you come up with, because things change. But
Because Troy, how much of this is the town gonna try to implement and get going? And
Well, that's the thing, going back to the committee, the question whether it be a connection to the town, I think it should be. Just like the Parks, Trails, and Trees and the youth, have a liaison on the board, but the committees, like this month, the Parks, Trails, and Trees meet the second Tuesday, the youth and we leave them alone. I mean, a board representative shows up,
Right.
but they do their own agenda, their own prioritization of the
Right.
goals that they're doing. But the key is, and ideas are great, but if you don't have money, it doesn't go
Right.
anywhere. So with this, one thing the board is they're gonna decide next Tuesday, is we have a big spring election. One of the ballot questions is increasing the sales tax by 1% to develop an economic development and parks and public amenities fund, like the capital improvement fund. So those who wanna be on this committee can be a little bit more motivated because there's actually funding behind it. So if you wanna do a shop local program, the town can provide some funds for that program. If one of the objectives is to improve downtown, like we're working on,
The facade grants,
the
right?
facade grant,
Right.
Which is
the
an
town
amazing
would
program.
authorize money toward this committee,
Right.
just like we did the Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee to pursue the GOCO grant.
Mhm.
So I think it should be a tie-in with the town, a partnership.
Mhm. Right.
I mean, because when I'm talking to Spencer and Nick, the board members part of those two other committees, it's very time consuming
Mhm.
when they have full-time jobs.
Right.
And that's where you don't rely on me and my staff to do some behind-the-scenes work on a daily basis, prepping for your next committee meeting, whether it be quarterly or monthly.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
stuff like
just
that.
securing grants is very
Yeah,
time
just writing
consuming,
grants
so-
and doing research and,
Yeah, and, well, to your point, I also think, and it'll be more clear when you see the spreadsheet, but it really only the town can deal with CDOT, right, on Main Street. Really only the town, I mean, your input's important, but really it's gotta be the mayor or the manager that goes to CDOT, like the wastewater treatment plant, or buying water shares. But the other things, like a shop local program, or going out to the larger oil and energy companies here and saying, hey, we need your help, we need your resources. That's really best for you guys, not the town.
yeah, very good.
So there's some, I think some real leverage points that you guys can really make some amazing changes easily in the next, say, 6 months here in town. By summertime, I think, you talk about that beautification, 3 flower pots. You would not believe the difference you're gonna see if you plant and water 3 flower pots. It's amazing.
And that's what they did this
They
last
already did,
year.
I think. Yeah.
And we've had a ton of compliment, there's little benches and flower pots.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, it doesn't have to be some big owner's program, and it doesn't have to be a whole lot of money, but there does have to be somebody who says, yeah, I wanna do that, I wanna champion that. Otherwise, there's just too much to do, not enough people to do it, and it won't get done.
And the committee is important to me because we need to have those groups that are non-government, so to speak, to work with the community. For example, if this ballot question passes, a funding source develops, and part of that idea is to develop a business improvement grant, where it's a 50-50 match up to say $10,000, where you can repaint your outside, put in new windows, new awnings, new gutters, new signage. That would be better coming from a committee than from me. You know, because we have the image, we're government,
Right.
you know. So that's kind of my thought on that.
I just
Well,
don't like
plus
asking
they
people
have,
for money.
they have more of a, when it comes to, like you said, ballot questions on raising a tax or something, these people can go out
Yeah.
and advertise for it and
You're saying these
promote it.
people, like your name's not gonna end up
Well,
there.
these people over here, they can promote it, whereas as a town board
These
member
people whose
can't.
names start with,
Well, see, Mike's wife's already on another committee, so Mike is available for this.
So I have to stay home, I have to wash the dishes, I have to do
Well, she's
laundry. She's busy.
but I mean, to your point, here's the thing about committees. You're gonna get this range of talents, right? You just said you don't like asking for money. I'm gonna guarantee you 9 out of 10 of your fellow compatriots are gonna think the same way. But there's gonna be one among you who says, oh yeah, I know that guy. I play poker with him every Wednesday night. I don't have a problem. Right? I mean, there's always gonna be somebody who can fill whatever those little blank spots or gaps might be. You might be really good at writing grants. Mike, on the other hand, maybe not so good at writing grants. I don't know.
I'm not good at spelling.
Yeah, you can tell I'm not a grammar person. So, you know, I would suggest you want no fewer than 5 and no more than about 13 people on this committee. You see, those are odd numbers. There's a reason for that. If you ever had to really get to it, which you probably never will, you can have an actual vote if you needed one. but I'd recommend no fewer than 5, no more than 13. And I would love to have those of you that participated in this kind of lead it off, because then you can turn it over at a later date. But you're the people who know what went into this plan. You understand it because you created it. So you can explain it to someone else to get them on the committee when you want off, whatever that might be, 6 months or a year or 5 years from now. So.
Well, there's a number of folks here, tonight was kind of a bad night, I think, for our numbers. There are a number of folks here that I'm thinking of that would serve on the committee in a better situation than I could.
What do you think the best way is to get that commitment from people?
Well, I think-
Because we don't have another meeting set. What we could potentially do is just basically call a meeting of the Economic Development Committee, show up, right? And if you wanna participate in some way, you show up to that meeting. Email is never a good way to ask people, right?
Well, you know, I mean, honestly, the mayor, Troy, I think they need to reach out to people who they think would be interested and be beneficial to the community, and ask them, you know, we're putting this together, would you consider helping us out? Otherwise, people will be like, some just won't come, some won't know about it. You know, there's people who maybe haven't come to any of these meetings, but still are somebody that might be
Interesting,
an asset
right,
to
yeah.
this committee, you know, maybe they haven't had time, they didn't know about it, those type of people.
What-
And we did at one time have that Chamber of Commerce, and some of those business people, you know, they pulled back, you know. I'm sure we can speak to this, I'm sure you were part of the Chamber of Commerce for years, and you know who those people are, and those people who still have some businesses here, and get them into it.
You know, if we can get 2 or 3 local business owners involved, I think that would help as well. I mean, it's not just about business, but
Right.
if you can at least get a couple of them, like Mr. Garza or whoever, you know, Jesse Trout or.
And they still have the Rotary Club. Could you maybe look into the Rotary Club, and some of them might be interested in doing something like this?
And you know, we may just ask those clubs, can you
Send
get
them
us,
over.
get us a member
or
to be
two
part of
to
this
help.
club, because, you know, you're part of it.
Sure.
And it could be a position in their club, you're the liaison to the economic development.
Well, one thing I'm finding out is, you know, this becomes our 3rd committee, they all overlap.
They're all
I mean,
tied together, yeah.
They're all tied together, because if we're gonna do like the splash pad in the park. The Parks, Trails and Trees Committee did the grant, it's for the youth, from the youth committee. The economic development wise is part of that theme as
They could
well,
support
because it
it.
attracts people to the community, so it's all interlinked, so.
What do you guys think about this? Now, February 1st is our community meeting, it's a Saturday, it's sort of in the morning, you decided from 10 to noon.
We're having breakfast.
Pancakes?
Yep.
When is it?
So anyway, I'll be there. What we could do as a suggestion is hold the first meeting of the Economic Committee immediately afterwards, and make it a 20-minute meeting, and make it a meeting about when you wanna have your meetings. Let's talk about it. But then what that does mean is between now and then, which is relatively short, it's only 2 weeks, we need to ask people, those specific people, to come to the community meeting so they can hear now about the plan where they might not have heard about it before, and stay for that extra 20 minutes so we can have that really quick first committee meeting. That'll be when we pick a chair, for example, determine the dates, how often they wanna meet. But it should only, I can push that through about 15 or 20 minutes. It won't
I
take
can
long.
ask a couple business owners,
You think that approach might work?
I think so,
I think
I won't be around.
You're gonna skip just because you're not gonna ask
No, I
me to
have
stay.
to go up in the mountains with the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
I thought you were doing dishes,
Yeah.
laundry.
Well, no, that's my weekend, take the Boy Scouts up there.
Do dishes.
That's probably
for
worse than
Christmas,
doing
too.
dishes, actually.
I'm gonna freeze my tail off, I guarantee it.
Well, if that sounds like a plan, yeah.
Because the people that attend that meeting are gonna be interested in it anyway, so you might
Excellent, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great,
I think that's a
because you
really
can
good
cherry
idea.
pick from the,
We could just ask those people to just stay. If we hadn't reached out to them before, it's a general announcement. Hey, we're having our very first committee meeting at whenever, 12:15. Please stay until 12:30 and we'll be done.
yeah.
And I would suggest to you too, that if you wanna show up to something like that, that doesn't mean you're a committee member. One of the ways I like people to work in small towns is, you might come in you're not on the committee, you don't wanna be on the committee, but you're really interested in the Shop Local program, so you'll come to that meeting about Shop Local, but that's, the extent of your involvement. So don't think of it as something super formal where you have to be on the committee in order to do something you would wanna do. Cause there may be something that we wanna reach out and tap you for that's like a 2-hour.
And don't call it a committee, just call it a group. Call it a group instead. I think, cause committee boy, I don't
That
wanna be on
scares
that.
people, that
Committee
scares people.
This is a taboo word.
I've heard them called advisory groups, task forces.
Committee, oh,
Committee,
look
yeah.
at that, and the other
All the same
committee,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, where they're like, it's a formal, I need to
Just
commit
that.
to, yeah.
See, call it a fun group, see, what's a fun group?
Economic development casual group.
Chat
Casual.
session.
There you go, call it that.
Cocktails with Troy.
Yeah, there you go.
Economic development mixer.
Mixer,
Oh.
there you go, mixer.
Let's call it a
Mixer is great.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something though. Whatever word might work here, network seems pretty formal.
Oh, no, not a
But,
network.
yeah. I don't know.
Not a task force, cause that's like.
That's worse too.
That's worse.
I thought about calling it the Pure Platteville, and then I was thinking of another P, but I couldn't come up with another P. The Pure Platteville Planners.
I like that, I think that's a lot more, I like that.
The 3 Ps.
Yeah, that's what
The
I'm trying to
Pure
come up with.
Platteville
The P,
planners,
right?
I like that. Cause it's not a committee, and it's,
Mixer.
can you tell me I'm an elementary teacher? Yeah, it's like.
That's good.
Then you could have a plenary session. Then you could have potatoes and popcorn at your plenary session.
There you
I
go.
like
Pickles
the
and
mixer
peanuts.
better, to be honest.
The mixer. Okay, well, I am done entertaining you for the evening. I do want to say personally, thank you very much. This clearly is your plan. I hope you can see that. I tried to kind of coordinate it in a way that made sense, but really your suggestions, your input, all the work you put into it made it what it is, and obviously I couldn't have done it without you. So I want to say thank you very much. I hope you stay in touch with the plan. And so if you have any other suggestions in the meantime, send them to me. We've got one more community meeting obviously on the 1st, and then we have the adoption by the board on the 18th. And then it's yours to play with from that point forward. So I'm happy to help in any way I can. I like to stay in touch with my plans because I really like to see what actually happens with them. I think it's critical to get the committee established and on the way, because otherwise I think most of this is gonna flounder because the town can only do so much, and the so much is like this and a sea of this. So if we can add this much to that much, through a committee or a, mixer group, then I think it would be good. Any last minute questions or thoughts?
Can you write down your email address for me?
I will give you a card, will that work?
Yes, that's
Okay,
perfect.
so we'll do that.
So I'll try to get you some pictures
That'd be
tomorrow.
lovely, I would appreciate that. But thank you very much for your
Thank you,
time, I
Jill.
really appreciate it. I think there are leftover cookies if you want some.
So you want these things?